crack. This is what I live. This is what I breathe. This is what I live in. I'm being honest with you. I'm being honest with you. You allow Black Lives Matter on campus, but you don't allow white power on campus. Why not? It's the same shit. Well, both are hate group, but neither are productive. So if you denounce one, denounce the other. Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. That's what it is. I'm being honest with you, bro. I'm being honest with you.
Post? Are you kidding me?
Let me tell you something. Listen, but let me be honest with you. I just want to say this, right? I want to tell you something right now. African Americans make up 13% of the population, yet commit over 50% of the violent gun and drug crime in the United States.
And you don't think there's a problem with those?
No. That's true. It's 55%.
Okay.
Right? So 95% of that is to other blacks. So me as an African American, I have a 2,000 time more likelihood to be shot and killed by another black man leaving this event than I do by a white person, a police officer, and a neo-Nazi.
So you don't think that's a
2,000 times more percent. I mean, we're killing us as African Americans. We're killing each other. That's what the real fucking problem is.
Yo, this is a reverse mirror. She supposed to be talking.
I'm being honest with you. That's what the problem is. That's what the problem is. This is me and my brother right here. We got to stand together, man. Oh, but listen. I'm being honest.
You in the first world nations that do not have defined language. So to have something at a government agency with multiple languages tells me that we have made many strides.
Okay,
which means if I was from Vietnam and came here today trying to apply to get in here, or has been here for some time trying to apply for any paperwork to drive, to feed my family, to support different people. What if I did not know all the words that are on that application?
You know what?
I had translated.
It's an amazing thing. You said that. Because the local Vietnamese community has a center that teaches English taught by Vietnamese. So people need to take some time out of life.
That's beautiful. There's a center similar to that that's attached to St. Augustine Church in South Philadelphia that does the same thing for a variety of activities. And not one of those particular members in that community has voiced support of Trump because they know that the implication.
We're not talking about supporting Trump. I'm just telling you what our values.
So your values, you just said that you wanted to engage in the values of America. What are they?
Easily. Responsibility,
that's a value,
hard work. That's what American dream is all about. You work hard. Hey, being a 5'4" Asian guy in this world is not easy, okay?
Being a black man in America is not easy, but no, but wait, let me clarify some shit for your ass, because you want to bring up 5'4" and Asian. Because let's clearly say this: Asian model minority, Asian people. You were placed in that position by the government because they felt bad once they did internment. And there have been sociologists, psychologists. I know.
You're a victim.
But you would not know. There's no difference in the delineation at one point. There was no difference in the delineation at one point. You're trying to make
black men are handsome, Asian men. We're not even in the picture.
And if they did, I shouldn't say it, don't say it. But check this out. You just made my argument a little stronger. You stated that these values are responsibility and things. So what are the responsibilities of a person coming to this country who's not a citizen?
Okay.
How do they navigate the system if the language is not for them? How do they navigate the system if the
He just said there's a center.
I didn't ask you. I asked him. You're the same guy from last time. I'm not talking to you.
Oh, that's nice. Dismiss people. He just explained it to you, and then you talked all over him. You railroaded him.
You're the same guy from last time.
He just explained it to you.
I'm only talking.
He said there's a center that you can learn the language for free.
Last time. I'm almost certain.
Can I explain?
Called the cops.
Yeah. I got that one on camera. Yeah, I remember that one. You're a shit starter. You're a shit starter. That's fine. But
Ignore them. This is
I'm not. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? You like it?
Talk to him.
I'm good.
Look at him.
I love cameras, by the way.
Continue. Quit deflecting.
It's very constructive for me.
Jesus. Okay.
My parents did not know how to speak English. So what did they do? They worked as a janitor that cleaned toilets. All with the thought of making my life better as they bring me up through education. And then as they were able to save enough money, then they were able to go to night school to learn basic English and tool, and they were able work at a CBS to develop film. So that was their next, okay? So as an immigrant, that's your responsibility to quickly work hard to be self-sufficient to get back in the country that allows you to come in here. That's all I'm saying. Now, the reason why I voted for Trump is I want that accountability back. What I got under President Obama, which I wish he did, was they were able to reach out and help the inner cities, which I didn't think he did. I have friends in North Philadelphia. We talked, and that was their biggest disappointment, was that he didn't think he did very much for the inner cities. Now, the message that I get from the progressive movement is that we're all victims all the time. If I'm a minority and I'm not successful, it's the white person that has been pushing me down. If I'm white and not successful, it's the 1% that has taken advantage of me. That's their victim mentality. The other thing is, if a kid that goes in school and shoots somebody, you know what, they don't blame the kid. They blame the teachers for not identifying that, oh, that's a troubled kid Joe was. We should have
blame teachers for that.
Oh my God, I heard that.
I want us to circle back to your point.
It's victimhood. It's never your responsibility. And that's what I feel like this new voice, what he's saying is, we're going to make America great, and part of what I think America great is taking responsibility by giving you opportunity. No, I do not live in a horrible country.
So how do you make something great?
By having everybody take accountability for their lives.
There's theological commands to kill non-Muslims.
No, there's fucking not.
Oh, there is.
No, there's not.
Well, then why do they do it then?
There's something called...
I've read parts of the Quran.
No,
you know who
there's
did this?
nothing in the Quran
Muhammad
that says
did
that
this. He killed non-Muslims.
No, he's not. Muhammad, what you don't know, used to be ridiculed sometimes by people he didn't know, by people he wanted to convert to Muslims, and he got rocks thrown at him. He's gotten punished and all these things, and guess what? He never, ever, ever fought back. He never fought. So don't tell me my own religion, because I never went into Catholic stuff, and I never said, yo, your prophet or Jesus said this. Do you think that Jesus is the Son of God?
Yes.
Well, guess what? He's not. Did I give a shit that you think he's the Son of God? Look, you laugh. I'm not gonna laugh. I don't care that you think he's the Son of God. Go ahead, believe it, live with that.
I'm not killing you.
How does that?
Why do Muslims commit terror attacks and then?
Why do Jews commit terror attacks?
Go anywhere near the same rate. It's a false equivalence.
Oh, really?
It's totally a false
is with the development of the
As an Asian guy, ever committed a terrorist attack?
Not the same rate at all.
Whoa, why did Pearl Harbor just get the fuck out of your head? That not happen?
That's not a
Oh
terror.
my God, fuck all Asians. Fuck all Asians,
We
right?
never said that
Fuck all
Jews don't
Asians.
commit terrorist
Because-
attacks,
no,
but they don't
you
commit
said
them
that
at anywhere
all-
near the same rate as Muslims do. That's the point. Everyone commits terrorist attacks, but not anywhere near the same rate as Muslims. And this is more than facts. You have no arguments, dude. You're being pretentious and conceited. Exactly.
Why do Muslims do faith tests before they execute people?
I'm not going to shut up for you, dude. You were talking this entire time, and you have no arguments. Calm the fuck down. What's your problem? No, I'm not going to attack you because I'm not a violent prick like you.
I asked you to shut the fuck up. I shut the fuck up for you. I went like
You
this.
didn't. You
You're on fucking camera, bro.
That's fucking pretentious. That's not actually listening to me.
Why? What are you afraid I'm a Muslim?
You have no arguments. Can you actually
Why
refute
don't
my
you shut the
points?
fuck up and check out my
If you refute my points, I will.
I know my rules.
Keep it peaceful, guys.
Look how violent you're getting over a fucking argument.
Trump's hate.
No, the argument is not. It's called you being rude.
You were doing this while I was talking, bro. That's not respectful. No, you were doing it in a mocking manner. These are not arguments. Can you refute my argument that Muslims disproportionately commit crime as opposed to Jews and Christians?
Can you let me speak?
And terrorism.
Can you let me speak?
Let's see what he said.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Look, man, I honestly lost my track of thought because of what you did. But I'm gonna
Just answer his question, though. What the fuck did I do?
Just reset the
Okay,
question.
I'll let you. Okay,
Reset the question.
so to phrase it, you said that we claim that Jews don't commit terrorist attacks, so that Christians don't. But we did not claim that. We think that we know that borne out in statistics, Muslims disproportionately commit terrorism as opposed to Jews and Christians. So that's why it's a bigger problem.
No. You are scared of Muslims, I guess, because you think that the major majority has killed people, right? Now, hasn't there been a time when a major majority of Asians, as I'm going to go back and say, bombed the fuck out of America?
It was one country, and they didn't. It was one country.
Let him finish, and I want to hear you.
Somebody else
Let him finish, and I want to hear it. But finish your point, and I want to hear it.
The difference is that Judaism does not command the killing of non-Jews.
Whoa, how did Jews come in here? I'm talking about Asians. Why did Asians just bomb America? And
because it's not a religion.
It's It's not for religious reasons.
That was a state
So
actor.
how is it
As far as I know, there's
religious reasons?
That was a
but
state
to
actor.
A bunch of Asians.
That was a state actor.
Well, see,
It was
again,
so there's always a reason why it's okay, but when it comes to
Again, the problem
Jews,
with Islam.
okay, how come we like Germans? Why the fuck do you guys all love Jews, but you guys like Germans? What the fuck?
Because they stopped killing Jews.
They stopped killing Jews. So you're telling me that till today there has never been a German guy who assassinated at least a fucking. You're gonna tell me this is real? At least a restaurant full of Jews. That never happened once since that day, or did you never hear about it?
So you think there's inequality, but actually men are the victims of it?
Yes, indeed. I mean, our election manifesto shows 20 areas where men and boys are disadvantaged by the state, by the state's inactions, by the state's actions and inactions. And for 5 years now, I've been asking feminists to point me to one area where women and girls are disadvantaged by the state. And in 5 years, not one suggestion has come forward.
Perhaps they would believe that there is a long-standing institutional prejudice. There's been an unlocking, if you like, of the power that they believe men have held, and therefore there doesn't need to be a state prejudice in their favour. This is all about redressing the balance. That's what feminists are after. But you think that they are...
Well, if we're going in for retributive justice, then we should be giving, I guess, black Americans a white slave each.
wow.
You acknowledge that men are more concerned with working in their lives.
More work-driven, yes.
Work-centred.
Yes.
Than women.
Yes.
And on that basis, you say that, therefore, women don't work as hard.
No. I'm saying not
That's
as
what
many
you said
women.
today,
Not as
and to me
many.
half an hour
Not
ago.
as many women work hard as men. 4 times as many. 4 out of 7.
While they're in the workplace?
Yes, I mean 4 out of 7 British men are work-centred, and only 1 in 7 British women. That has to have consequences for.
What does work-centred mean, though? When it comes to the thing that most gives you pleasure, is that what the question is when it's work-centred?
It's to do with paid employment.
So I'm still not clear. You're saying that women have a desire to be at home more than men?
Yes, it's perfectly
Women have a
biologically
desire
natural.
to look after children more than
Yes.
men? And yet you want men to have custody of children in equal proportion to women?
No, we went through this before. That's a starting point, but I'm saying that in the case of most couples could come to an accommodation where the woman, spends more time with the children, and that is just a natural way. Women are happier to do that, and in fact, study after study shows that although men and women would both prefer to work less hours in paid employment, far more women would prefer to work a lot fewer hours, because they want to spend time with children and family. There's no problem here.
Yes, so in other words, when judges are giving women more time with children than men, I can't see why you're saying that isn't a fair assessment then of the lifestyle and the choices of men and women.
No.
Would men want to be the primary carers of children and go to work and sit in traffic and plan the menus at home and take the children to school and so on?
No, clearly not. But no, our beef is about access to children more than custody. And the reality is that family courts deny fathers access to children. We have supporters who've spent over £100,000 trying to get access to children. Some have succeeded, some have failed. It's a lottery.
Okay.
How many men can afford £100,000 to see their children? It is cruel.
Is it wrong to have changed people to change their minds so dramatically as a result of a number of incidents in their general view towards migrants?
No, I don't think so, because this is where these are where the warnings were originally anyway. It's just a case that at the beginning, at the forefront of this, those people weren't listening. Now they've actually had to see it, and these people have had to go through really bad situations for people to see this problem.
I mean, there were warnings that countries like Germany wouldn't be able to cope from people from within Germany, that the open door policy towards refugees would lead to problems. So are you surprised by this change following the accusations of sexual assault by groups of migrants or refugees in Germany?
These sexual assaults are obviously a bad thing, and no one is going to say otherwise, but I think it's been blown out of all proportion. I mean, I have a you know, a few months ago I had a 16-year-old boy murder another 16-year-old boy about half a mile from my parish, from my church. Doesn't even make the national press. But this sort of thing suddenly becomes a way of focusing all our anxieties and so forth. Yes, incorporating large numbers of people, and from my mind, the more the merrier, because they're being saved from a terrible situation in Syria and parts of North Africa and so forth, that we should celebrate that fact. And yes, it's going to be difficult, but actually I think we should absolutely have to be up for all the troubles that come.
Because you're blaming an entire group of people for the actions of a few bad apples.
I don't think anybody's trying to claim that every migrant going into Europe is going to start raping people. I mean, you had the Charlie Hebdo cover showing that, you know, the 3-year-old boy, Alan Kurdi, who died trying to make it over to Europe, would grow up to become, in their words, a bum groper. But it's a satirical magazine. They do that provocation intentionally. They do it to show how ridiculous something like that is. They're not actually saying that. And nobody's saying that all these migrants are going to come up and be rapists or sexual assaulters or robbers. But what we're saying is we don't know who the people coming into Europe are. There are criminals amongst the migrants. There are terrorists amongst the migrants. We've seen that. We know that to be a fact now. That is
true. And we
true.
have homegrown. We have as many
Absolutely.
more homegrown.
And we have as many.
We have as many people who are born and bred in this country who are rapists, who are criminals, who are. And why is it that we are demonising?
So why import more?
A particular. Because they're called the population in general. That's what they're called. I mean, we're not. These are not people who are.
Why not proper background checks?
Sorry?
Why not proper background checks?
I don't think that's practical. And also, I have to say...
So just let them all in?
The people... Yes, I'm a let them all in.
Just open the floodgates, let everyone in.
No, I've got a yes.
Uncle Tom Cobley and ISIS.
I've just said yes. Why do you keep on saying ISIS like that? Why do you keep on presuming, cursing these people with that? They're running away from ISIS, they're running away from their bombs, they're running away from this war that we've done too much to stoke up and create. And actually, if we close the doors on them, we're doubling up on the moral...
I didn't say close the door, by the way. I said proper background checks. There's a difference.
Right, let me just ask you, though, one question. Do you think, Raheem, that there is a case of Islamophobia here that's sort of masquerading as anti-migrant or anti-refugee, using the sort of sentiments you're saying, actually, they're just anti-Islam?
I have a big problem with the word Islamophobia. Being somebody who was raised in a Muslim family, having had anti-Muslim sentiment aimed at me, I have a problem with calling an anti-mass migration sentiment and actually weeding out. It's the same thing as you said. It's a few people in there that might be instinctively hateful towards Islam that you're tarring the whole anti-migration movement for those people. So it's the same thing. The same argument can be had back and forth.
But conflating the two does the same sort of thing, doesn't it? I mean, in the end, isn't it going to be exploited by the far right and extremist movements?
I think you're overestimating the reach of the far right now, especially in Germany. When you look at the Pegida movement, they have strict rules about what they are and are not allowed to do on their marches. When 5,000 people took to the streets in Dresden last night, they are not allowed to drink, they are not allowed to shout, and if they are doing those things, they are kicked out of the Pegida movement.
Right. I mean, do you think that it is a little lazy and complacent if people do suggest that this is just Islamophobia?
It is Islamophobia. I mean,
what is Islamophobia? Any criticism of Islam?
It's patently clear that the way in which people are being targeted and the language that's used about Islam and Muslims is clearly provocative, is clearly, I mean, and indeed through our government and the prevent strategy and all that sort of nonsense, it's targeting Muslims. It doesn't help. And what we've got to trust in this country is we've got to trust that the rule of law is blind to all that, is blind to that. That's how it should be, and we shouldn't be targeting Muslims.
Let's turn to Jason Collins. This is the sports star that came out. You tweeted this. So Jason Collins is a hero because he's gay. Our standard for heroism has dropped quite a bit since Normandy. Why such a cheap shot against a guy who did a pretty brave thing?
I don't think it's a cheap shot. I think that heroism is defined by willingness to sacrifice in favor of, and take a real personal risk in favor of a noble, larger goal. This may be a noble, larger goal, but I'm not sure what the risk is.
He's the first male American athlete in history to come out as gay while still playing.
Martina Navratilova came out in 1981. That was
male.
3 years before I was born.
I said male.
So let me ask you something, Piers. Why do you hate Americans so much that you think this is such a homophobic country that when Jason Collins comes out, it is the biggest deal in the history of humanity? President Obama has to personally call him to congratulate congratulate.
Why do I hate America so much?
That you think that we are such a homophobic country.
I think you may be homophobic simply because you said, why is Jason Collins a hero? Because he's gay.
I don't understand why.
Why sneer at a guy for coming out when he's being courageous?
I'm not sneering at him for coming out.
Aren't you the one being homophobic?
I don't think it's homophobic to simply say we're apathetic about people's personal lives.
You're the one who thinks your government's going to invade and attack you, which is fairly an anti-American sentiment.
I don't think that my government is going to do that. I think there's a possibility.
Brave because he came out. So when you call
I think that America is a fundamentally good place,
Piers. Look at your own backyard.
I think that America is a fundamentally good place. The fact is this, Piers, you're British, and a lot of folks have said you should leave the country because you're British. You come on here every night and you speak in a British accent. That doesn't make you a hero. That makes you being who you are. I'm Jewish. I understand. I'm Jewish. I wear a yarmulke on TV, right? There's a lot of anti-Semitism. There are people who are killed in anti-Semitic attacks, per capita, as many hate crimes against Jews as against gays in this country. America is not an anti-Semitic country, and I'm not a hero for wearing a yarmulke. Being who you are in 2013 in America is what America is about. It is not heroic to be who you are publicly. I'm glad for Jason Collins if he feels that he's going to live a happier life now. But it does not make you a hero to be who you are. Because America is not a homophobic country.
You know what, Ben? Come off it.
Come off it.
Got to leave it there, but come off it.
So some are asking, what's left to protest? Lisa, let's start with you.
Well, there's still more to protest because, unfortunately, Ferguson was not the first nor the last incident where we have had racial unrest between the police and Black Americans in the street. As we know, Sandra died in prison. We don't know if she killed herself. So this is happening all over the country. However, I was not happy to hear that when they had this one-year anniversary march, that there was going to be this kind of violence by, one or two idiots. That always happens. It was a very peaceful situation, and there were no incidents until this one situation took place. And I got to tell you, I was mortified. I fell to the floor. I couldn't believe it was going on. But I don't mean to make excuses, but I feel like if there was never a Ferguson to begin with, if there was never a Michael Brown incident, there would never have been a today. There wouldn't have been a year later. There would be no anniversary of any of that. So I do look at historically why these kinds of things never end well. Racism is not good for anybody. It all ends badly for everyone. There are no winners ever. So
Lisa,
we shouldn't have had to have
You bring up history, and I want to go into something that Representative Emmanuel Cleaver said on MSNBC's Morning Joe this morning. We have his quote. He said, "I tell people that Ferguson a year ago was 1955. Today it's 1965. So there's been change. It means, though, we are a long way from getting Ferguson into a state where it is part of the 21st century. It's coming, but it's coming slowly." Larry,
unfortunately.
Larry, let me ask you, is that an accurate depiction? Are we in
I haven't seen this
1965?
massive kind of lack of critical thinking since the O.J. Simpson case. This is nonsense. Police shootings against blacks are down 75% over 30 years. And have we forgotten that both the DOJ and the grand jury exonerated Officer Darren Wilson?
Thank you.
Michael Brown did not have his hands up. He was not running away. This is a bunch of nonsense. And crime has gone up because cops have pulled back. Bad guys know that. So the very same people that these protesters claim that they care about in Baltimore, in New York, in Chicago, in Philadelphia, has seen crime go up.
Well, I want to also point, guys, to... Well, hold on one second, Lisa, because I want to talk about a new Pew poll that highlights what Larry was just saying there. 53% of whites and 86% of blacks feel there is more that can be done about racism in America. Both of these numbers are up from 2014. There are only 39% of whites and 78% of blacks believe that racism was an issue in 2014. Larry mentioned all that stuff about the Michael Brown case, which actually sparked this Black Lives Matter movement. But it seems that is just the facade to all this. Obviously, there are racial issues that remain. But where does the Black Lives Matter movement go from this? Because they're not getting their point across, obviously.
That's the issue. When racism is on board, the waters get murky. Once you have a bunch of cops killing a bunch of black men and women, and wrongfully so, we can't now tell the bad guys from the good guys.
The statistics don't bear that out.
What bunch of white cops are killing a bunch of black men?
If we did not have the rabid murders of innocent black people, we would be able to decipher
more whites get killed by cops than blacks do.
The bad guys and the good guys.
2.5 times as many whites get killed by cops than blacks do. It's nonsense. You're getting black people killed because cops are pulling back and the black guys guys know that. Murders are up 20% in New York City. Baltimore has not seen this level of murders in 40 years. You think there's a connection between this and the nonsense that a lot of these activists are putting out? I certainly do.
It does seem, Larry, based on what you're saying, and that statistic is true. More whites are killed by police than blacks, but it's almost like the Black Lives Matter needs to go back to the drawing board and start over again because
they don't
this
care
whole
about
movement.
The facts don't seem to matter to these people.
The whole movement was based on a false.
Why do we need to go back to the? Why must we go back to the drawing board? Because you said so? I don't think so.
No, not because
Black
I said so,
Lives
Lisa,
Matter
because
is a
it's all
hashtag.
based on the
No, we don't
Michael
have to go
Brown
back to the
killing,
drawing board.
which was proven to be by the DOJ not racially motivated, and Darren Wilson has been acquitted, as Larry was quick to point out.
But we should also mention that
it wasn't racially motivated?
That's right. It wasn't racially motivated. What's your evidence that it was? What is your evidence that Darren Wilson was trying to kill Michael Brown because Michael Brown is black? Where is your evidence of that?